I am
Good
Simi here.
morning.
Morning. I am Simi here and I'm going to be your facilitator for the day today. Many of you know me. I've already facilitated a few video conferences. For some of you, I might be new and others might be my first time with you. I know you're all experienced and you've prepared thoroughly well for this video conference, but still I'll just take you through certain protocols and I would request you to listen to them very, very carefully. So whenever you speak really, really slowly and very clearly. Say complete words and try and not use any local slangs or jargons that you have. We have 3 schools from 3 different parts of the world and all of us have very strong accents. And if we speak fast, it becomes difficult to understand each other. I am from India and I have a very strong Indian accent. And so if I speak fast, it'll be difficult for you to understand. Similarly, all of you have different accents. And sometimes technology can play up. And if you have a bandwidth head that can clip the audio and then you're not clear. So speak very, very slowly. Whenever you speak from your individual perspectives, speak about yourself and refrain from speaking at large about the community. I know you're going to be sharing stories in this particular video conference and those stories come from your faith, beliefs and culture. So large number of people believe in those stories, but when we reflect on those stories, I want you to reflect individually. Remember to show respect. It's going to be great to find similarities, but there are going to be some differences as well, and we should celebrate these differences and not criticize them. Remember to ask a lot of response questions. Questions based on what you've heard. When you hear stories from your friends in other countries, reflect on them. If you need time to reflect, just let me know. I'm very, very open to having time. And if you want 2 minutes or a minute's time to think and, think about what the story is, just let me know. And take that time, reflect it from your own individual perspectives, and then talk about or ask questions. Please be wary of your body language. Show respectful body language because that's the only way we can see each other. And if we are respectful in our body language, that portrays a lot. And just a couple of points on storytelling. When you tell a story, be very passionate about the story you tell. So choose a story that you really, really love. And when you tell the story, break it into the smaller parts so that's easier for others to remember and listen. And it's easier for you to narrate those stories as well. So speak in small fragments and enjoy the storytelling experience. Let it be a joy for you. So if all the protocols are clear, just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Awesome. So what we're going to do is, since preschools are meeting for the first time, we'll start with what's the best thing about growing up in your community. And if there's one thing you would like to change, what would it be? And then we'll move on to stories. So we'll start with students in Indonesia. And then, okay, let's start with students at Lewis and Clark because they've been telling me about their community for a long time. And then move over to students in Indonesia and then Star of Sea. Does that work perfect with you? Awesome. So let's go ahead over to you students at Lewis and Clark. Elsie.
Hi, my name is Anna. I think the thing I like the most about my community is probably the size, because it's big enough that there's a lot to do around here, but it's small enough that there are also a lot of people that I know. And one thing that I would like to change is probably the diversity, because we don't have a lot of ethnic diversity here. So yeah, thank you.
Howdy, my name's Andrew Osterheld. Sorry, I'm a little too close to the camera, my fault. One thing I love about Spokane is it's very tranquil, very peaceful. Ironically, as we hear sirens in the background. And very small, accessible. You're able to get around downtown pretty easily. Though one of the big things I think that one should work on around here is a poverty. You see a lot of homeless, sleep on the streets, under the bridges. It's really sad. I wish there's more programs to help them and employ them and stuff like that. But that's the only big thing I would work on around here. Besides that, I love the town. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brendan, and the thing I like most about Spokane is that its closeness to nature. We have a lot of parks around the area, and because it's not such a developed city, you can get to more natural, undisturbed places easier. If I could change one thing about my community, it'd be the school system. I think it currently values the wrong attributes such as test taking and memorizing facts, and doesn't take into account morals and ethics as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, students at LC. Moving on to students at Indonesia, what do you like best about your community and what would you like to change? Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Fania. I've joined some storytelling competition. I got the third place that time. My difficulty is to get into the character. Sometimes I also miss some parts of the story. Because storytelling is fun. So I like that. Okay. Hello, ma'am. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. What I wanted to iterate at this point was this is a video conference between the students in the 3 countries. And my job here is just to facilitate the video conference. So whenever you speak, try addressing your friends in the other two countries. And what I would really like the students in Indonesia to talk about now is their surroundings, about their school or about Depok, where you live. I know Depok is a beautiful place. I've been to Depok, so I know how it looks like. You have beautiful green trees and it's so amazing. So talk a little about that beauty and the malls and the big roads and everything that you have in Depok. And then we'll gradually move into storytelling. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Intan. I'm from SMAN 3 Depok. I live in Depok. Here now I'm in first grade of senior high school. I've been joining some storytelling competition, but I didn't get the winning. Sorry. Then I just want to ask you, do you like storytelling too? Nah, iya. Terus kan kita perkenalan diri dulu. Terus habis itu that's all. And this is my friend. There are more than 20 students here. And in SMAN 3 Depok, we are um, uh, we are the we are the choo- the, we got chosen by our teacher to join this video conference to talk to you, ma'am. That's all about.
Thank you. I know you're very excited about the storytelling, but I was just wondering if you want to speak about your community. That is the place where you live. What do you do in Depok? How does Depok look like? It is so near Jakarta. It's actually a part of Jakarta. So if you want to talk a little about that before we get to storytelling, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Ih. Good morning. My name is Puti. I'm from Tree Senior High School in Depok. About the surrounding from my school is it's very in the morning we usually have traffic jam in front of school because it's busy it's busy hour. And the surrounding about my school is what I like about my school is it's easy for us to come here with many roads to come here, so we can avoid traffic jams. Uh, about Depok is crowded nowadays because there are lots of buildings that like malls, and it's very busy. It's very crowded too. So Depok is crowded, and now uh, what I like about Depok it's when it's November through April, it's usually cold than usual because we have rainy season in Indonesia, so it's cold for us, and there are lots of places we can enjoy with like recreation places we can relax. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fariza Eden Sarpane. I'm a first grade in senior high school. Depok is in Indonesia, of course, in West Java. You know Borobudur? Borobudur Temple? Yeah. Oh, no. Someday you have to enjoy Indonesia. And Depok is near Jakarta. Is capital city of Indonesia. So this Depok is not too far from the capital city, and Depok is not like have many creation, but in Depok there's many cultures like Sundanese, like Batak, and maybe what else? Javanese. There's many cultures in Indonesia, and maybe some days you have to trip or travel in Indonesia. You can enjoy it. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. My name is Sam Dava Shaukia. You can call me Dava. I would like to tell you about Depok. I would like to tell you about Depok. As my friends say, Depok is crowded city, filled with many people's culture and many others. You can find between the modern art and sometimes a traditional art of Sunda here. Because we are living in Java, so the majority is Sunda tribe. I'm personally from Magelang, and the others are from tribes like Expanede. He's from Sumatra. So here in Depok, we gathered all and school and study in same school, Cemetery Depok. Uh, yeah, maybe that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, students in Indonesia. Thank you for sharing how your surroundings look like. Let's move on to Star of Sea. And if you would like to tell us, what does your community look like and if there's something you want to change about it? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Laura from Star of the Sea, and I think the thing about my community that I love the most is the fact that we're all so diverse in culture and just everyone is a very unique individual and we're all accepted for who we are. There's no hostility at all and everyone can feel like they can come out and talk to anybody else and not be judged about it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Lily, and the thing I love about our community is it's starting to warm up now, got a bit of warmer weather, and we're quite close to the beach, so that's really good. And we're also quite close to the city. It's really busy, hustle and bustle, and like Laura said, it's really diverse. There's lots of different restaurants and places to go, like there's lots of different cultures interacting. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Tash, and what I really like about our school is that we are encouraged to have our own opinion, and what Brendan from Washington said before, we all really agree with. That's what Star really tries to tries to get us to do, and we're encouraged to learn in our own way and to bring our own opinions and our own ideas to the conversation. And we're encouraged to be our own person and to use our privilege to help other people. And our school motto is deeds, not words. So we learned that actually making an action, not just talking about what we want to do or what we want to do to change things, is the best way to do that. So I would like most education to be like this because I think that it helps to raise us into our own people. Thank you. And that's all from us. Thank you.
Thank you. And now let's move on to, or let's see if you have any questions for each other before we move on. So if any school has any questions for anyone, just raise your hands and we'll address them.
I'm Spencer. I'm aware that Indonesia in absolute numbers has the most Muslims. How does the prevalence of Islam in your country affect your daily life? Thank you.
Just to paraphrase the questions for students in Indonesia, the question was, Indonesia has majority of Muslims, and so how does the presence of Islam affect your everyday life? So how does your religion, if there's so many Muslims around you, how would your day look like? How does it affect your thinking or your behavior or what you do every day? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Parardia. The Muslim people is so many in Indonesia. It's so effect in our life, especially when it comes to Idul Fitri. It's our big day in Muslim. Yeah, they are gathered in one place to pray, but other religion can join us to celebrate it. Thank you.
Maybe my name is Farizal, and maybe in Indonesia, this majority of Indonesia is Muslim, but uh, you know that Indonesia have a many cultures. Muslim teach us about honestly, about good manners, and all about the uh, with other religion. We have a respect when it was Christmas. We celebrate with them. When it Idul Fitri, other regions celebrates with us. So Indonesia has many religion and respectful. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to add on from Indonesia before we go on to the next question?
Hi, I'm Bridie. I'd just like to say that we here at STAR really respect that sort of aspect of Islam in which there is a lot of respect for the other religions, because I think we would all agree that that's something that really does need to be present in the world today. And so, we really just admire the discipline that you guys have within the religion. So, yes, thank you.
Hello, ma'am. I want to ask, how about the religion in your country, ma'am? Is that respect each other? Oh,
The questions probably for both these schools. How do people who belong to so many different cultures and religions live in your country? So if you want to focus on that, that's what they want to ask. Thank you. Let's start with Star of C first, and then we'll hear from LC.
Hi, my name's Ella. We can't really answer that question on behalf of the country. However, in our community, as we are kind of fall into the Catholic religion, our concepts of understanding and building good relationships with people are really important. So in doing so, our school in particular has an association with Isit College, which is a local Islamic school, because we feel that the best way to achieve an understanding and peace between very, very different, but also very, very similar people is an understanding of the relationship and an understanding of where they come from and how their community affects ours and how our community affects theirs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that great answer, and I really appreciate that you did not talk about the country as a whole, but it'd be great if you want to speak from your individual perspectives, what you feel your society does, or as an individual, how would you react to people who are different from you and cultures? Thank you very much. That was a great answer from your own individual perspective and with the perspective of your school. Would anyone from Star of Sea like to answer as well, or shall we move on to Luis and Perfect. So Elsie, your turn.
Hello, I'm Diana. I personally feel that in my community here, I see a lot of very diverse religions, especially being in America because a lot of people immigrate from different places. I personally was born into 3 different religions, and Islam was one of them. But I don't feel that I see enough people being open and warm to learning about new religions because people here have a very traditionalistic way of living, and they kind of only know what they've been into. So I would also like to see people more interested in learning about other cultures here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I feel that our school system, coming from my experience, doesn't necessarily celebrate religions. As a public school in America, you often are encouraged to suppress religions and celebrations, so we don't often celebrate even some of the most major holidays that a lot of the student body participates in. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think that our community and my personal awareness on different religions could be improved, especially since we have a large Christian population from our area. Our society tends to take on a lot of their celebrations. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Bryn, and what I have found is that Americans, or at least people in Spokane, are becoming more generally open to other religions, but they're less willing to change their personal beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, students at LC. Moving on, let's start with the storytelling. We have an hour of storytelling time. So what I would like to do is invite one student from each school initially to tell us their story. You can have about 5 minutes of time to tell your story. If it's shorter, that's fine. If it's try to make it within 5 minutes or make it longer than 5 minutes. And I want the others to listen to the story very, very carefully so that you have questions that you can ask your friends. And also, if you can find any similarities or differences if there are stories in your own religion, faith or beliefs that are similar, or if there are stories which you feel contradict the story that you've heard and you would like to share that story. So let's start with students at Star of C with their set of stories, and then we'll move on to students in Indonesia and then to students at LC. Thank you. So one story initially from each school, followed up by questions, and then we'll follow up with a second story if we have time left. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Bridie, and so the story that I'm going to be talking about, it's a really quite a well-known Australian sort of children's story, if you will. It's called Possum Magic. It's by an Australian author named Mem Fox, and she, yes, so the story, it's about a possum. What's his name? Oh, that's embarrassing. Anyway, so a possum is a native animal that lives in Australia. I'm sure you guys, I'm pretty sure America has them. I'm not sure about Indonesia, but it looks a little bit like a squirrel, but they come out at night. Anyway, so there's this possum and they live in an Australian bush, which is like a really sort of big foresty area. And he lives with his grandma, who is also a possum, and the grandma has some magic. And so one day, the possum he is, I think he's kind of playing with his grandma's magic, and he turns himself invisible. And so he becomes really sad, and nobody can cheer him up because nobody begins to see him anymore except for the grandma. The grandma can still see him. And so to try cheer him up, the grandma and him, these two possums, they go on a trip around Australia. And the book is beautifully illustrated in that you really start to see a lot of the aspects of Australian culture come out as these two possums travel around Australia. And so they go to all like the sort of major cities that we have, and there they have a lot of the sort of iconic food that Australia has. So things like Vegemite, which is a thing that we put on bread. It's kind of like Marmite. I don't know. And then they go and they have lamingtons, which is a type of cake, and fairy bread, which is a really common sort of food. It's butter and sugar on bread, which is delicious. And they have Anzac biscuits, which is an honorary thing for the Australian war veterans. And so basically, in the story, as they go to each of the cities, he becomes less invisible. And so towards the end, he finally becomes visible again. And it's a big celebration. Everything's happy again. But what we've found is that we think that this story kind of brings out the idea of wanting to love your own culture, because as he travels around Australia with his grandma, this little possum starts to become more sort of, well, real again, as he starts to realize how much of the culture that he lives in he is enjoying and how much it actually is a part of him. And so the story symbolizes how we are all made up of different parts of our community, but together it makes us who we are. And yes, thank you.
The other schools can take a minute's time to reflect on the story and think about the story and think about their question. And when you have your questions, you can ask them. So take your time to reflect and absorb the story.
Okay, so this is a story about a crying stone. So on West Sumatra, there is a girl. She is very pretty, but she lives with her.
Can I interrupt at the moment before you start with story? I just wanted to ask Elsie if they have any questions for their friends in Australia. If you have, we'll just hear the story from our dear friends in Indonesia. Great. It seems there are no questions. The story of Possum is awesome and everyone seems to have understood the moral. But think and reflect if you have similar stories that you would also like to share later on. Yes, students from Indonesia, go ahead with your story from Sumatra. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Zafira. I'm going to tell you a story about a crying stone. So this story is from West Sumatra. It's about a pretty girl. She lives with her poor mother, and the mother is not very pretty. So she became famous or popular in her region, but she became arrogant to others. She didn't want to she didn't want to accept that is her mother because her mother is so poor and not perfect as her. So when every man every man asks who's that? Who's behind you? She always say she's my slave, she's my she didn't want to accept that is her mother. So one day when they were walking on a field, the pretty girl fell, but her mother didn't want to help her because her mother had a broken her heart was broken because the pretty girl was so cruel to her. So the pretty girl sat in that field and keep crying and and shouted to her mother. But her mother didn't want to come back to help her, so the mother just left away, and the pretty girl became a stone that will cry on Ramadan on Ramadan month. Yes, thank you. The more story about this story, the more value of this story is about obey your parents, even though she's not perfect. She's your mother. Thank you.
Any questions for your friends in Indonesia?
Hello, I'm Diana. My question for Indonesia is, what lesson does that story teach you, and does it teach you to respect your parents or treat your parents in a different way than we do here? Thank you.
The answer is yes, because the story was told when I was young. The story was told when I was young, and I became more respectful to my mother and my parents. So yes.
Hi, Spencer. Do you feel that there are any instances in which you should not obey your parents? Thank you.
Sorry? Pardon? Can you speak slowly?
Hi. Do you think there are any instances in which you should not obey your parents?
To paraphrase it, the question is, are there any instances or are there any situations where you feel that you should not obey your parents?
As a teenager, sometimes we want something, but our parents uh, didn't agree with with us. So, for example, I have a hobby. It's about painting, but my parents didn't want me to paint because they think that my hobby is useless. But yeah, that's all. Thank you.
So did you give up painting or do you still paint?
Yes, I still paint.
Hi, my name is Brendan, and I was wondering what the significance of the stone crying during Ramadan is. Thank you.
Stone is crying every Ramadan because the story is happened when it was Ramadan. So the stone is crying because the stone is remembered about what did what she did to her mother. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, students in Indonesia. And it looks like students from LC don't have any more questions. So if we could move over to the story from LC. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brendan, and I have a story I'd like to share with you that I wrote myself. It's about a kid named George. And George liked school. He was very good at it, and he always got good grades. There was one class in particular, math, that George liked especially well. He was very good at math, and the teacher, Mr. Green, always talked to him after class and was very nice. George always knew the answer whenever Mr. Green called on him during class, because George's hand was always the first one up. And Mr. Green liked George very much. One day after class, Mr. Green told George, "You're very smart, George, but you better watch out." George didn't really understand the entire why Mr. Green had said that, but he enjoyed the compliment. At the beginning of the second semester one day, the class got a new student. His name was Andres, and he had just moved from Puebla, Mexico. He was lean and built and taller than most of the boys in George's class. George didn't pay much mind to him, but most of the other people made sure to steer clear of him. Some even wondered if he could speak fluent English. The first day he came into class, George was silently happy that there were no open seats near him. A couple weeks into the semester, the class took a test. When Mr. Green handed the test back, he kept George's to use as an example while he showed the other class their mistakes. George had aced the test and sat beaming while Mr. Green went through the test, constantly referring back to George's excellent work. After class, George started packing up. He was always the last one to leave, and Mr. Green handed his test back, told him, "Good job, very, very good job, George." And George was very happy and left to go to his bus. On the way to the bus, George walked along a usually deserted side of the school, but today it wasn't deserted. Some of the boys from George's class were there. That made George pretty happy. He assumed they were there to ask him questions about what they had done wrong on the test. George liked it when people asked for his help. George walked up and said, "What's up?" Then the pushing began. First a shove to put him in the middle of the group, then a harder one, and a harder one. Soon George was being flung around helplessly. He didn't know which way was up, which way was down. He was just being pushed all around. Gradually the pushing died down. George had dropped his test somewhere in the midst of the boys, but he was too stunned to really think about it. As the pushing stopped, George regained his senses and looked around. All of the boys were taller than him, and none of them looked friendly. They were in a loose circle around him, and one boy stepped up. His name was Zach, and he was particularly nasty, and George tried to steer clear of him during school. "Hey there, smarty," Zach said. Zach said to George. He was holding George's test. "Look what I got." There was no way out, nowhere to run. "Yeah," George said weakly. "Here, do you want your test back?" Zach held out the test for George to take. Thanks," George said. He reached out to take the test, but Zach snatched it away. Wait, I was just kidding," Zach said. "Maybe I'll just keep it. Or, you know what? Maybe I'll just do this." And Zach took the test and ripped it in half, then in fourths, then in eighths, then in sixteenths. He flung the test behind him, and it fell among the other boys. George was devastated. Then Zach stepped up and punched George in the face. It hurt more than anything George could remember. Then George felt a punch on his chest, and then another one in his gut that made him double over. Soon the other boys had joined in, punching him not just with fists, but kicking him with their feet and using their hands to hold him down. George couldn't talk. He couldn't yell. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even cry. He just lay there moaning, waiting for it to stop. Suddenly, there came a loud thud, like the sound of a punch, but George didn't feel anything. Then came another punch and another one. Soon, no one was touching George. He opened his eyes to find Zach lying next to him, nose bleeding and out of breath. All of the other boys had backed away, except for one pair of feet that George saw out of the corner of his eye. He looked up to see Andre standing over him, breathing heavy and looking angrily at the other boys. If I ever see anyone doing this again, I will hurt them 10 times worse than Zach over here. Hear me? Andre said with a thick Mexican accent. The other boys started running. Andre turned to George and helped him up. You okay? Anything broken? No, I don't think so, but I ache all over. All right, do you think you can make it to my house? It's only a few blocks away, and then we can get some ice on the worst stuff and call your mom. Suena bien? Said Andres. Sounds good, said George. Andres put his arm around George and helped him hobble away from the pieces of his test that still littered the ground. Thank you.
That's a great story. Well done. So I'll leave it to the other schools to ask questions. I do have lots of questions myself, but I'll refrain and I'll let the students at other two schools ask those questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ella, and I was just curious, upon hearing Brendan's story, if attending attending a public school with the lack of religion, is it a self-decided thing stemming from the student body that violence cures conflict? Thank you.
Hi. I don't think that's necessarily the case in a public school, but it too often is. A lot of times kids, when they don't really understand another kid or think that kid's maybe one-upping them in some way or another, such as being exceptionally smart or good at school, that violence can often be the case, especially with kids who aren't as privileged or not as gifted in other areas. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Putih. I would like to ask, how does the moral story of the story impacts your life? Thank you.
That's a very good question. I wrote this story thinking that the moral would be don't judge a book by its cover, and meaning don't judge someone until you really get to know them. So I think this is important in my daily life because at my school you get a lot of diversity and a lot of different kinds of kids who don't think or act the same way. And so even I'm at fault for judging people too quickly. So I think this story goes to show that you don't necessarily know someone until you really talk to them. You can't judge based on appearances alone. You need more to go off of. Thank you.
Name is Marisa. It's the story you write yourself, right? The story you write yourself?
Yes, I did write it myself.
Is that story you get is from your experience or something?
No, that didn't happen to me, but I've heard a lot of stories that are kind of similar to that. So I was kind of using those stories as a basis when I was writing it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Any other school or any other student wants to share any similar story that they have heard from their faith beliefs and religion, which are very similar to the three stories that you've heard, or any stories which you think are very contradicting to the stories that you've just heard. If you would like to share another story based on what you've heard.
Hi, I'm Tash, and I would just like to raise in the Bible there's the story of the prodigal son, and we all have grown up hearing this story, and it's about the story of a son who goes away and he spends a lot of his father's money, and he loses a bit of his father's respect, but then he comes home and his father forgives him and he looks after him. And this kind of contradicts the first story about the crying stone, because it teaches forgiveness, especially when someone you love has done something wrong, and you need to learn how to forgive that and learn how to help them when they really need it, especially when it's family. Thank you.
That's a great story. And you've rightly pointed out it does contradict the story. So different cultures and religions can have different stories. Lewis and Clark, do you have any story that you think is similar or contradictory?
Hi, my name is Mackenzie, and I'd like to share another story from the Bible called the Good Samaritan. A man was walking between two cities, and when a couple of robbers came across him, they stole his possessions and his money and left him unconscious and near dead on the side of the street. A pastor walked on the same side of the street, saw him, and crossed over to the other side, not wanting to go near him. A man who was supposedly his friend came on the side of the street and also passed on the other side, not wanting to touch him. A man who was supposedly his enemy came and helped him. He bandaged his wounds and took care of him and gave him medicine. He put him on his own donkey and took him to an inn, where he gave the innkeeper some money and told him that this should cover any expenses for the man to be taken care of, and he would come back in a couple of weeks and pay for any extra expenses. I believe that this story teaches that an act of kindness can be a good investment, even if it is not expected or not something that you would normally do or should be seen doing by typical standards. Thank you.
Just to Mackenzie, that was a really great story, and it's one that the Australian bishops really kind of endorse and want us to reflect off. And it really challenges the unjust treatment of asylum seekers that we face a lot in our country. And I think it's a very important story for us all to learn, to be able to take a lot of wisdom from. Thank you for sharing it.
Students from Indonesia, would you like to share another story?
Hi, I'm from Indonesia. My name is Teliana Juwita. Can call me Teli. Okay. I would like to tell you about the story from Indonesia. The title is Lutung Kasarung. Lutung Kasarung is monkey. Yeah. Long time ago, in West Java, lived an old king named Prabu Tapa Agung. Prabu Tapa Agung had two daughters named Purbararang and Purbasari. Prabu Tapa Agung planned to retire as a king. He wanted Purbasari to replace him to be the next queen. Hearing this, Purbararang was angry. Then she said, "Father, I'm older than she is. It's supposed to be me, not her," said Purbararang. But the king still chose Purbasari to the next queen. Purbararang then set a bad plan with her fiancé Indrajaya. They went to a witch together and asked her to put a spell on Purbasari. Later, Purbasari had a bad skin. And then Purbararang said, "You are not as beautiful as I am. You cannot be the queen. So you get out and stay in the jungle." Okay. And then in the jungle, Purbasari met a monkey that the name is Lutung Kasarung. And Lutung Kasarung helped her to back to the palace. And then they back to the palace. And then hearing this, Purbararang was very shocked and said, "A queen must have a handsome husband. If my fiancé is more handsome than yours, then I will be the queen," said Purbararang. Purbasari was sad, but suddenly Lutung Kasarung came forward. Purbararang was laughing very hard. "Your fiancé is a monkey." Suddenly, Lutung Kasarung changed into a very handsome man. He was even more handsome than Indrajaya. Purbasari then became the queen. She forgave Purbararang and her fiancé and let them stay in the palace. That's all. Thank you. The moral value, don't be greedy, don't be arrogant. Yes, like that.
Hi, my name's Maggie, and I loved your story. It was really good, and I liked it because it was a good story, and also your enthusiasm, like the way you told it, intrigued me to learn more. I mean, hear more about your story. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Tash, and I agree with Maggie. It was a really great story, and I loved the way you told it. It kept us all interested and really excited to learn more. Thank you. And it had a really great moral as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. At this point, if you have any questions based on any of the stories and want to ask each other, go ahead and ask them. And then I will move on with maybe a couple of questions that I want you to reflect on. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abby. My question's for Star of the Sea, and it's not necessarily about the story that they told, but they had mentioned the asylum seekers, and I was wondering what the meaning of that term was. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ursula, and with asylum seekers, there's people from all over the world, and they're coming to Australia to pretty much escape death and like in their country, and they have so much conflict there. And unfortunately, we have some political leaders who are very against that, and there's definitely a lot of the Australian public who disagree with our leaders, and we believe that we should let them in and like accept them and stuff like that, but then yeah, and welcome them and everything. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? Well, I have a question for the Star of Sea then, based on the asylum seekers. How would you use the story of the Good Samaritan then, if some of the politicians are against it, and I know as people would like those people to come into your country, what moral does the Good Samaritan convey to the people, and how is that used by your religious people? Thank you.
So in response to that question, we would actually like to think that we do, because in the Australian Catholic Church, the bishops are very much against our political leaders being against asylum seekers. So there are lots of sort of refugee rallies in which the bishops have spoken out against it. And in here, we've actually reflected back on the moral of the Good Samaritan to the story of Jesus, because Jesus was a refugee, and so he was shown compassion, and that's really what the moral of the Good Samaritan is. So if we can sort of think back to him and the idea of giving somebody compassion, it's something that is challenged a lot in the sort of issue of asylum seekers, is that why can't we just show the compassion? Yeah, they are the most vulnerable people because they have a really big fear of losing their home, and they don't really have anything else except this hope to come here. So we all sort of personally agree that they should be allowed in. But yeah, anyway, yes, thank you.
Thank you for that excellent explanation. We just have about 15 minutes left, and I would like to ask all schools and all students present there, why do you think these stories are so important to us? Why do all cultures have these beautiful stories? So why do you think the stories are important to us? Anyone who wants to answer first can just raise their hand.
Hi, I'm Ella, and just in response to that question, I find that stories like this that kind of get told down through generations of a particular culture don't necessarily provide us with a full identity and a knowing of ourselves, but it gives us something to work off and something to build off, so we can ask ourselves, what aspects of this story do I find important? So what values in life do I find important for me to live a good one? Thank you.
Howdy, my name is Andrew Osterheld. With stories and being told, especially through religious contexts, cultural context, stuff like that, it's, in my opinion, really because we're social creatures. All human beings want to be loved and want to be connected in some formal way. And stories help us. They help us to understand hard religious concepts, philosophical concepts. For instance, is it easier to teach the story of this the prodigal son or the Good Samaritan rather than giving you a 1-hour lecture course on hardcore Christian philosophy, like C.S. Lewis or the like? You don't want that. You want to hear the story. It teaches you a lot more, gets ingrained in your mind more, and it spreads more quickly through in that manner. But that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
In my opinion, my name is Putih. In my opinion, the story is important to us because it teaches us to be a better person in life. Because it has moral values that we can apply to life, so we can be a better person to everyone, to the country, to everything. Yeah, and because of the story, we can also know about our own culture, because the story sometimes tell us about the significant story in each like Sumatra, Java, and Kalimantan, Sulawesi. It teaches us the culture that we didn't know, and then we can know about the story. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie. I think that we often have these stories with good morals because of the corruption in the world and how corrupt things can be, and how people have different opinions that others might think are wrong or incorrect, or in general actually are bad morals and things that we shouldn't do, yet people still do. So I think these stories are there kind of guide us and give us advice, but also as a hope for that there can be a better situation, or a guidance of saying, don't do this because this is a bad result of that. Thank you.
Well, I have another question for you guys to reflect upon. We've talked why these stories are so important in any culture. I just want you to think and reflect that in your own culture, how do you get to hear these stories? Whom do you hear them from? Or where do you hear them? So I want you to sit back and reflect. You've all heard stories, but where did you hear them? And then if you could tell your friends.
Hi, I'm Tash, and I personally have learnt most of my stories from people older than me, my grandparents especially. My grandpa used to tell me stories about my culture and where he came from in Malta, and that helped me to learn about my tradition and the values that he holds in great importance, and it taught me to be the sort of person who I think is worthwhile. And we also learn a lot of stories at school. We're told a lot of stories to teach us empathy and that sort of thing, and to give us an insight into other people's lives. And through books as well, you can live another life for 5-10 minutes a day, and it's an incredible portal into this other world. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anna. Personally, I've grown up in also in a Native American traditional culture, and so a lot of the stories that I've been told came to me through my elders and my mentors. Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Mackenzie. For me specifically with the story of the Good Samaritan, I remember just one summer throughout one year, it kept coming up at my youth group or church camps, and my friends and I always ended up discussing it because of that, and it just became a really important aspect to us, and we really were able to dive deep into discussing it and kind of the morals of it and everything that occurred and why and what it meant. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah. Well, I heard the stories from my parents as bedtime stories. So it it reminds it reminds me a lot. Then it make me a better person. Then I can be a more polite person to my parents. And yeah, that's all. Thank you. Name is Josephine. Well, in Indonesia, we have many cultures, which every culture has its own folklore, which the folklore has been passed from the elder to us from bedtime stories, and as the technology has developed, we read it on the internet, and how it affects my life is that the story uh, often make me realize many things that they make me a better person. Thank you.
Thank you very much, students, for reflecting on that. And we have now arrived at the end of our video conference. And as we've learned that every story that we have heard today has had a moral, and most of the stories that you hear, whether they're from your church groups or your religious places or from your elders or your society, school, internet, books, have morals. So if as a part of our concluding remarks, we could reflect on what are the morals that you've learned from stories that you've heard today, and what are the ones that are you going to be taking back with you. So if the concluding remarks could talk about all the morals that you've gathered and that you're going to be taking back with you today. Thank you. It looks like we've lost your Indonesian friends, but they will probably join us back. But if you could go ahead with your concluding remarks. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lily. We were just discussing what the morals we took away from it, and one of the main ones was respect, especially the Indonesian stories about respect for your parents and everything like that. Also, a lot of respecting the diversity and like respecting each other for ourselves and themselves and everything. And so hopefully we'll take that away and use it in our own lives. And yeah, thank you.
Students from Lewis and Clark. And we have your Indonesian friends back as well, so we could hear their concluding remarks.
Hi, I'm Abby, and the two stories that I really will take away from tonight's experience was the story from Australia about the possum and the pretty girl denying her mother, which is from Indonesia. And I thought that those two stories kind of gave different messages. One was obviously respect and obediency, and the other one was celebrating your culture and individuality. But I think that growing up is kind of striking a balance between the two of those, because you need to respect your elders, but you also need to find your voice as a person. And so I just thought that it was interesting how those two contrasted, and that's that. Thank you.
Students from Indonesia, if you wanted to talk about the morals after we've heard your friend from US. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas, and I would just like to say that out of all of this, I got that individuals, you as an individual, shape your community, but in return, your community also shapes you. Thank you.
It looks like we've lost your Indonesian friends again. So maybe if you want to give them a minute to join back.
Hi, it's Mackenzie. I'd just like to say something to start the C about your community. I liked how you talked about how you're all so accepting of diversity, and I think that's really interesting because I feel like here there is a lot of denial of acceptance and judgment of people, and that people can't be who they want to be. And I think that since that's in your community, that is so great, and I just wish that people here would be more respectful of others. Thank you.
Thanks, Mackenzie. And I just want to say that I've been to a few video conferences and I've usually just been sitting at the back and haven't spoken at all. And this one has been so great, like to really hear so much about the different cultures and everything like that. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you very much. I think we're not sure if your school from Indonesia is going to be joining back because they're not in touch with Sanjay, so Sanjay is not aware as well. So I think let's say goodbye to each other, and maybe as part of my reflections, I'll really convey that you did mean to say a great goodbye to them and you really, really enjoyed their stories. Thank you. You could unmute your microphones and say goodbye to each other.
Bye. Thank you guys. Ready. Bye.